And I will continue to fight for that same principle every day in this campaign. The fact is, the people of Florida voted back in January. You did your part. You showed up in record numbers, and you made informed choices. But today, some months later, you still don't know if these votes will help determine our party's nominee. You still don't know if this great state will be represented at our convention in August. It is time you knew, because the more than 2.3 million people who voted in Florida and Michigan exercised their fundamental American right in good faith. You watched the news, you went to the candidates' websites, you talked to your friends and neighbors, you learned about our records and policies so you could make informed voting decisions. You didn't break a single rule, and you should not be punished for matters beyond your control. Now, I know that Senator Obama chose to remove his name from the ballot in Michigan, and that was his right. But his choice does not negate the votes of all those who turned out to cast their ballots. And we should not let our process rob them and all of you of your voices. To do so would undermine the very purpose of the nominating process, to ensure that as many Democrats as possible can cast their votes, to ensure that the party selects a nominee who truly represents the will of the voters, and to ensure that the Democrats take back the White House to rebuild America. Now, I've heard some say that counting Florida and Michigan would be changing the rules. I say that not counting Florida and Michigan is changing a central governing rule of this country. That whenever we can understand the clear intent of the voters, their votes should be counted. I remember very well, back in 2000, there were those who argued that people's votes should be discounted over technicalities. For the people of Florida who voted in this primary, the notion of discounting their votes sounds way too much the same. The votes of 1.7 million people should not be cast aside because of a technicality. The people who voted did nothing wrong, and it would be wrong to punish you. As the Florida Supreme Court said back in 2000, before the United States Supreme Court took the case away from them, as your Supreme Court said, it's not about the technicalities or about the contestants. It's about the will of the people. And whenever you can understand their intent, it should govern. Well, it's very clear what 1.7 million people intended here in Florida. Playing a role in the nominating process in a two-party system is just as important as having a vote in the presidential election on Election Day count. We know it was wrong to penalize voters for the decisions of state officials back in the 2000 presidential election. It would be wrong to do so for decisions made in our nominating process. Democrats argued passionately. We are still arguing, aren't we, for counting all the votes back in 2000, and we should be just as passionately arguing for that principle today here in Florida and in Michigan. It is well within the Democratic Party rules to take this stand. The rules clearly state that we can count all of these votes and seat all of these delegates, pledged and unpledged, if we so choose. And the rules lay out a clear process for doing so. With this process, I hope we will honor the will of those who came out to cast votes. Each vote you cast is a prayer for our nation, a declaration of your dreams for your children and grandchildren, a reflection of your determination to ensure that our country lives up to its promise. Each vote is a tool, one used throughout history to break barriers, open doors, and widen the circle of opportunity. I remember when President Lyndon Johnson addressed the Congress and the nation, urging the passage of the Voting Rights Act. He declared, "I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of democracy." It was urgent, elevated language, but it was not hyperbole. Now, as back then, those are the stakes. That's why here in Florida, even when you were told your primary might not count, you voted anyway. A Floridian I know from Tallahassee told me about his mother's Canasta Club. It's a group of women in their golden years who gather every week to play cards and visit. They talked about that Florida primary every week as they gathered around the card table. They followed the news closely. They discussed the candidates and their positions on the issues. They knew about the dispute over the primary schedule and the question of seating delegates. And when it came time to vote, like so many other good citizens of this state, the ladies of the Canasta Club dutifully cast their ballots for the candidates of their choice. They made informed choices. They did nothing wrong, and they should not be punished for doing their civic duty. You knew then what Americans know, that this political process of ours is about more than the candidates running, the pundits commenting, or the ads blaring. It's about the path we choose as a nation. If anyone ever doubted whether it mattered who our president was, the last 7 years with George Bush should have removed every single doubt from anyone's mind. That's why you voted, and that's why I'm running. And that's why you've been organizing and raising your voices, hoping to have your votes count. You refused to stay home then, and you refuse to stay silent now, because you want to change America's future. And you have faith that your party, the Democratic Party, will give you that chance. I'm here today because I believe we should keep that faith, listen to your voices, and count every single one of your votes. If we fail to do so, I worry that we will pay not only a moral cost, but a political cost as well. We know the road to a Democratic White House runs right through Florida and Michigan. If we care about winning those states in November, we need to count your votes now. If Democrats send the message that we don't fully value your votes, we know Senator McCain and the Republicans will be more than happy to have them. The Republicans will make a simple and compelling argument. Why should Florida and Michigan voters trust the Democratic Party to look out for you when they won't even listen to you? Now, if you agree with me, I urge you to go to my website, HillaryClinton.com, and join the more than 300,000 who've already signed our petition asking the Democratic National Committee to count your votes. All 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the territories will have a chance to play a role in this historic process. Now is not the time for our party to have a dialogue about which states and which votes should count. The people of Florida are all too familiar with where that discussion can lead. In the end, we cannot move forward as a united party if some members of our party are left out. And I want to be sure that all 50 states are counted and your delegates are seated at our convention. So So will you join me in making sure your voices are raised and heard so that your votes can be counted? Because remember, it's been the mission of the Democratic Party, guided always by the understanding that, as President Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said, the ultimate rulers of our democracy are not the president, the senators, the members of Congress and government officials, but the voters of this country. In this Democratic Party, the voters rule, so let's make sure your voices are heard and your votes are counted. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless America.